And in this demo video, I wanted to showcase some new capabilities within our product Stream Connect for Apache Kafka. With the Xanadu release, we and the product team added some schema management features. It was something that our customers were asking for to support specific schema. So but the product team added those capabilities. It's the first iteration of that feature, so you may find things a bit basic, but it will grow over time. We have the ability to import schema directly from Confluent schema registry. So there is a few settings. I won't go into the detail here, but there's a way where you can configure the credentials, so we can make those API queries to retrieve the different schema. So if I click on schema registry, my coworkers probably had configured already some schema registry. So we support standalone schema registry, which means is you can store your schema in ServiceNow directly. You create them, put them in ServiceNow, or you can retrieve them from Confluent schema registry. So it will take some configuration to authenticate and retrieve the data from the schema from your Confluent schema registry. We have one example here with a payment schema in there. So the documentation explains the versioning and everything. I won't go into that level of detail, but know that we can now grab the schema from the schema registry. So one of the features we support now in Stream Connect is the ability to validate the message against an Avro schema. So that's how it will be handy if you're using the Avro serialization format. Here in my demonstration, I wanted to basically showcase how you could leverage Avro schema. So here it's using a Confluent schema registry, but I'm gonna go and look at schema. I created my own very simple schema. I keep things very simple to explain those concepts, but you can feel free to try with more complex schema. Here I went to that feature, create standalone schema, and I provided the JSON file that contains my schema, my Avro schema. And as you said, very simple. I was just testing the plumbing, basically, making sure the feature works. It was the first time I was trying this. So I created that schema. It's a standalone because I don't have access right now to the Confluent Kafka, to the schema registry of Confluent. I don't have access to Confluent at all. So I'm just using standalone schema, but the concept is pretty much the same. And then what do you do with this? Well, when you produce a message from ServiceNow, you can specify the schema, right? So here I can specify the schema. So I'm showing the Kafka producer step, which is the step you use to build your own action in Flow Designer when you need to produce Kafka messages from a workflow. And this, what's new, now the ability to basically pick the particular schema. So you can see here I have the schema I created earlier. Of course, now I need to format the message, making sure when I format the message, it will comply with what's in the schema. So I know in the future we make it easier instead of having a free form and having you to hard type the data respecting the schema. We're gonna put stuff in the UI from what I've heard from the product team. But this is the first iteration of that feature. So far you have to type the right format of the schema here, and make sure it matches with what you have in there, right? So yeah, I'm just passing the data within the message field. So when I do this will work. It will just basically serialize the message using the schema, and then send over to Kafka. You could do this with the producer API v2 from a script as well. So I wanted to test this end to end. So I wanted to see how I could consume. I was still learning some of the Kafka concept. The schema was still something I was kind of learning. So on my computer, I wanted to consume those messages and see how I can deserialize this. I've initially tried to use the Kafka console consumer script from Kafka, but I was not able. I don't think there's a way to use an Avro schema to deserialize the message. So I went the Java route to do that. So I just created a piece of code in there using some Avro library, and even I think I'm using some Kafka Confluent library. Could be wrong. No, not on this one. Just the Apache Avro and Kafka libraries. There is the information. It's all hard-coded in the code. I know it's bad, but this is just for a very simple example. Here I'm putting information about my Kafka Bootstrap server. Of course, I specified the schema here because I don't have access to Confluent schema registry. I'm not retrieving on the fly the schema. I'm just basically hard-coded a JSON file that has the same schema that I've imported into the instance. So it's the same, right? It just matches. So my code has access to the same schema, so I know when I'm consuming the message, things should work. One thing I've learned and I want to share in that video is we have to skip some of the bits from the raw data that's coming when the ServiceNow is sending the raw data, and I'm gonna point you to the doc. Something very important. I struggled quite a bit to be able to deserialize the message, but in the doc it's actually well explained here in the schema management for Stream Connect. There is basically the first 4 bits that need to be ignored when you get the raw data from your Java code or Java client to really see the value of the data that you want from the Kafka message. From the raw data, you need to skip those 4 bits that we use for specific purpose. Here it's just it just explained perfectly. So in the code, I had to skip those first 5 bits and focus on the remaining bits. And yeah, because I didn't read this part of the doc, I struggled quite a bit. And I could see the raw data, but as soon as I was trying to deserialize using the Avro schema, I was struggling. So what I had to do is use that function, that piece of code, to just skip the first 5 bits of data. And then I use the remaining bits to decode. And I'm using basically the schema that I loaded in my code to parse. Right, so this should work. I just compiled this very simple piece of code. This is just for test purpose, and by any means, I'm not gonna use this piece of Java code, of course. I've used ChatGPT to generate most of the code, to be honest. So it's not something I will even share. But once I compile the code, I can run it here and ignore some of the fail and error message. What we can do now is basically start producing message from the ServiceNow instance and see if we can decode the raw data and use this Avro schema that I've created. So I try to do things, shows everything on the same screen, which is hard. But let's try. If I run, it's just testing my action, making sure it's creating. So I'm displaying the base64 data, and basically within the code, I'm decoding this and parsing using the schema parser library, and then displaying the data, right? So I could put some French word, bonjour, vive la France. Doesn't matter, just testing. Right, so you just work. Just wanted to share my finding with my little pilot here. So things to remember is when you try to deserialize, just keep the first 5 bits, and then you should be good to go. So this is what I wanted to highlight is our ability to import schema, and when you produce message from ServiceNow, you can now use that serialization schema. I hope that hopeful. This is a very high level overview, but if you need some deeper dive, you can always contact me at quentin.carton@servicenow.com. Bye.